Hello, fellow listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the 𝗖𝗏𝗀 podcast, powered by the 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗀 Group. Here we share insights on African language technologies and tools. So stay tuned and connected as we dive into today's discussion. So today we have here a special guest joining us, Olanrewaju Samuel. I hope I didn't butcher your name, Samuel.
Yeah, you did it a bit because Yoruba is highly tonal.
Oh, okay. So how am I pronouncing?
Olanrewaju
Oh, okay.
Samuel.
Olanrewaju.
Olanrewaju.
Okay, Olanrewaju. What's the
No,
meaning? I don't
you are murdering it already.
sorry about that. I don't
Okay,
like
it's fine,
giving
it's fine.
names that are highly significant. In fact,
Yeah,
most African names.
yeah. So Olanrewaju, it's Ola is wealth.
Oh
The
wow.
is a progressive marker. Rewaju, that is re is go, waju is forward. So wealth is going forward. More like wealth is growing, is booming. It's gonna be booming.
Hey, okay, that's great indeed. Welcome. Okay. Well, good afternoon, Samuel. Welcome to the 𝗖𝗏𝗀 podcast.
Thank
So,
you.
Samuel is a graduate student at the Department of Linguistics at the University of Toronto, and he's here to share insights into his fascinating work in the field of computational linguistics. And for our listeners, I am Rebecca Agri, the language officer of KLS, that is under the 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗀 Group. So 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗀 Group is a leading consulting firm in localization, translation, and interpretation. So Samuel, thank you so much for honoring our invitation. And I am
Thank you.
elated to have you on today's episode. So let's dive right in. So to set the ball rolling, who is Samuel? Can you provide us like a brief background or information about Samuel, your education, and then your community?
Okay, yeah. I am Samuel Olanrewaju. I am a native of Okunland. I am from Omi in Yagba West local government of north central part of Nigeria. So I had my BA from University of Ilorin. I had a master's from University of Ibadan, and I'm currently at University of Toronto. I do linguistics. Basically, I'm interested in speech sounds. So I've been trained from phonics to diction to phonetics and phonology. So that simply means I am able to teach and understand sound from the basic knowledge that's from nursery, from kindergarten actually to the university level because of the flair I have for speech sounds. And I'm also interested in speech sounds because many African languages are primarily spoken. Even the ones that are written are problematic. So I would rather deal with the sound than deal with the text. And then with the speech, I could be able to interface directly with the community that is speaking the language and not just providing or propounding theories on things that is supposed to be and not things that is in terms of the speech settings and in terms of the speech sounds. So I
Oh,
do phonetics, I do phonology, I yeah, I mean, so I have a community I've been running since 2014. The idea behind the community is that we want to connect with linguists from all around Africa, the ones that are working on African languages, who will be interested in coming to talk to us about their languages, sharing of opportunities, growing the African space before the advent of me getting a lot more into natural language processing and computational linguistics. So the
okay.
community has been growing since then. And now we have over 500 members from like maybe 5 or 6 people that we started with. And then, yeah, it has been growing a lot. We have had a lot of successes. We have had a lot of challenges too. But basically, I think our successes surpass our challenges. So, yeah, from scholarship to conferences, from conferences to opportunities, to job opportunities, and to a lot of things. Currently, we are working on a volunteer project, which I call 𝗖𝗏𝗀𝗀 Linguistics. 𝗖𝗏
Okay.
is a pidgin language that means what is going on in linguistics. So Yawa linguistics, and we are doing that to create the first open source data set that is tonal, that is on proverbs, that is on tone, and that is different task on the parallel languages we have represented in the group. These are Hausa, Yoruba, Ogba, some other languages in Nigeria. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's great. That's great. I about the Yawa linguistics, and we are going to go into that further. I mean, probe into that to know the progress you've made so far. But before that, I know you are actively involved in Linguistics Island, which is your
Mm,
community. Can you
mm.
tell us more about the inspiration behind this initiative?
Okay, yeah. So Linguistics Island was created out of the desire to connect Africans to Africans. So you don't really have to be African in origin before you can be African. You can be a Canadian working on African languages. We consider you to be African.
Great.
So because we believe that if you are working in African continent, in African context, if you are interfacing with our culture, one way or the other, you are picking one or two things from us, as we do from you. So you are African too. So the idea is to connect people, to share opportunities, to have classes, to explain concepts, to ask questions, and more importantly, to educate people about linguistics. So because linguistics is generally misconstrued, the term linguistics is always like maybe it's used most synonymously with polyglot. So a polyglot is someone that speaks more than one language. And then he said, okay, if you're a linguist, how many languages do you speak on the average, right? So, and
Mhm.
then the point is, you don't have to be a linguist does not speak multiple languages. A linguist is concerned with the idea, the brain behind language itself. Why do humans speak the way they do? Why do they use speech the way they do? Why do they talk the way they do? What are the linguistic variables that characterize a speech community? For example, how is a Twi speaker different from a Yoruba speaker in terms of their language patterns? And how does this influence their worldview? For example, how will an English person say I am eating orange, and Yoruba person will say I am drinking orange? One is focusing on the roughages, which is an American speaker, and the Yoruba
Mhm.
speaker is focusing on the water content of orange and say I am drinking orange. So you don't eat orange in Yoruba land, you drink orange. All these nuances are what is concerned about linguistics, which is lagging behind in a lot of people. Even people that are really linguistics don't really care. So these are the motivations behind uh, the community itself. Yeah.
Wow, that's so remarkable. I mean, listening to you, I'm learning so much right now. So
Thank
going
you.
back to Yawa linguistics, I know you mentioned some objectives of Yawa linguistics, but I'd like to know what progress have you made so far?
Okay. Yeah. We in terms of progress, everybody is getting their hands dirty in terms of data. So we have a collaborative platform we are building data set from. I had a class, like not like a class, I had a symposium where I explained the modalities, the reason, the methodologies, and other things that are needful to push the project. So, in terms of progress, I would say we are already on the 20% level. We just started not quite long, and it's a big project, which I'm not hoping to even finish in next 6 months because I want it to be representative enough. I want it to be written by African because Africans to learn how to write their own history and not to let another person talk about your history. So let us own it. So the idea is we have our language. We speak our language. I am a Yoruba man, for example. I represent Yoruba community. I should be proud of myself. My data is my language. My language is my data, and my language is my identity. So if I lose my language, I'm going to lose my who I am. I'm going to lose my origin. So if we build Yawa linguistics, then Yawa linguistics will stem from native speakers working on their own languages without technological interface. So you don't get to tell them to translate from one language to another, because if you are doing translation, most of the time you're not representing the knowledge system of that target language, but you are representing the knowledge system of the source language to the target language. So And then another thing that propelled that research is I was part of a project that just ended not quite long. Yeah, higher linguistics, higher data sets, and then we did something very related to that. So these are the progress we've made so far. We've analyzed the data set that are online. Many of them are not to marked. Those are to marked are not to mark correctly. Those are to mark correctly are not written in the right orthography. Those are written in the right orthography are not written in the right context. So, but if we have native speaker linguists who are interested in working on their languages and not somebody forcing them to, and then making it in a community-based, community-engaging concept, we own this data, these hours. That's the idea behind the Yawa linguistics, and that is what has been pushing the progress of the data set.
Wow, your achievements are really speaking volumes about your dedication and expertise when it comes to linguistics. So now going back to your experience in Rwanda, I know you you taught natural language processing for linguists in Rwanda.
Mm.
How was the experience for you? I'm sure it was an enriching experience. So can you share some key takeaways from your teaching experience in Rwanda?
Yes. So in Kigali, precisely Rwanda, yeah, I taught natural language processing for linguists. You're right about that. So the key concept I learned from that is how much linguists can do, and how much the text space is leaving behind African concept. So basically, the idea behind the project is to teach natural language processing in a non-technical way. And what we mean by non-technical way is that without coding, without these technological jargons, Africans, that's in this case Rwandese, should be buoyant enough to create data themselves, to curate data themselves, and to be able to archive this data set without the help of any technological person and without the big brain technology companies.
Mm-hmm.
So we I taught concepts relating to natural language processing, corpus linguistics, phonetics and phonology, morphology, syntax, and then how to use linguistic tools to do NLP. So because we are dealing with linguists, linguistic tools are already made there. They are not Python, they are not Java, they are not R statistics. They are just tools in linguistics that linguists use to work on language data. So by interfacing with linguists with what they do and incorporating that into NLP, we were able to bridge the gap between natural language processing practitioners and native speaker Rwandese linguists. So these were major highlights that we had, and then we had a lot of participants from UYED and from all over Rwanda who were part of the class. And then we had a training in the University of Rwanda, and then the training was very successful. So key thing is that Africa is growing, and I'm very happy to be part of the community, to be part of the people that are growing in Africa in terms of technology, because Africa is the next world. Africa is going to be the future of the world. Africa is going to be the voice of the world. So if we learn to do the things ourselves, another man will not write our stories.
Exactly. Another man will indeed not write our stories. So I know for every project there are some challenges that come up. So as the leader of the Yoruba data set creation for the Aya project, can
Hmm.
you share some insights into some challenges that you faced and how you overcame them? While you are
Okay.
speaking that, could you highlight the role your community members played in supporting the Aya project?
Okay. Yeah. So the Aya project was very fantastic initiative by Cohere AI.
Mm-hmm.
The challenges I faced started from the dataset itself. So, as I said earlier on, many datasets, especially from whatever tech company you can imagine,
Mm-hmm.
that lacks the collaboration of native speaker linguists, we miss out on a lot of things. So I discovered, for example, if you there was a talk I gave on my Aya project on a linguist perspective on Aya dataset, the Yoruba concept. So it's on YouTube. You can watch it. So
Okay.
I highlighted a lot of challenges we face, but I'm gonna just give a few of them here, and I'm gonna talk about how my community contributed to the dataset. So the idea behind the dataset is actually that the tech company collaborates with native speakers in a community-based sense, where people come to own their data, have their voice in data, and contribute to data set that would help in the language vitality, revitalization, or whatever thing, curation, or whatever thing we want to think about it. And knowing fully well that data set is not just a list of sentences, but a representation of human language, cognition, and knowledge system. We know that whatever thing we say about Yoruba language is a representative of we native speakers of Yoruba language. So we had this idea to propel the community and say, okay, I am leading this IR project, and the Linguistics Island is the community I'm resting on, and you are going to contribute to this thing, not because of IR itself or because of Cohere AI, but because it's a means for us to have our voice in tech companies, in tech products, because I know in years to come, AI will be a backend a methodology for building products. So we have AI-driven products. So the more data set that is available in our language, the better for tech companies to build products in our languages. So this was the primary uh, selling point. Should I call it a selling point? The primary strength that was pushing the data set contribution from the community um, forward. And I had this fantastic person, Moses Olaleye Moses. He was one of the guys that had the best contribution. He had over 5,000 sentences.
Wow.
Over, yeah. So he did fantastically.
That's great.
So thank you. So this was how the community contributed. And then from the community down to the higher data set, we had some challenges. The first challenge we had, as I was saying earlier on, was data set. So the data set was not properly written. So in the contribution pane, you have the prompt and you have the completion. The prompt is like the question, then the completion is like the answer to the question. So if you read the data set and it's not orthographically written well, you're gonna give it a thumbs down, or you give it a thumbs up if it is written well. So we gave it thumbs down multiple times, and we
Wow.
tried to type in the right, we corrected the right orthography, and we gave it the right writing system. So in the data set itself, we had to do a lot of correction. We have to separate the object from the verb, because most of the time there is this way Yoruba contract the verb and the object. If you're not a native speaker, you can't separate them. Like if you have like like it's as if the R is lengthened, but actually what you have there is that beat it. Ba is to beat.
Okay.
It is R. So if you have ba, it's not a single word, it's two words, the verb and its object. So many of these issues were very prevalent in even the existing data set, which was part of what we found in Aya. Another challenge we had was uh, uh, having the right keyboard to type with. So of course we improvised by using the shortcut. We had this Yoruba keyboard we downloaded from Swift Keys, this Microsoft Swift Keys, something like that.
Okay.
But it was not really working very well for the site we were on, and typing directly on the site. So what we did was to use Studio Microsoft shortcut. So we created shortcut and we use that to talk to deal with the tone and the subscript that's on the some of the special letters. And then the last challenge I will talk about is motivation to contribute. So I had a lot of people rushing in at the initial stage of the data set creation, but at some point there's this downside to the downside, and then people were not really motivated. So what I did was I initiated like a weekly meeting, so where we talk about it and making sure that I'm reminding them that this is why we are doing this project. So you remember want to have our voice on data, we want to have our knowledge system represented, we want to propel our languages, this is our identity and stuff like that. So when we have such meeting, at least for like 2-3 days after, then we have a lot of guys contributing. After then, of course, we have the downside. So and then I kept propelling the meeting back and forth like that. Yeah, I mean, these are just from the community challenge, the data set challenge, and the representation challenge.
Wow, that must be a lot of work. But I mean, we are glad that you were able to come up with solutions to them. So, moving
Thank you.
on, how do you envision the future of African linguistics, especially in the context of advancements in computational linguistics and AI chatbots? How do you envision the future?
Well, the future of AI, as I said earlier on, not only in AI, the future of the world is in Africa. I strongly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So, currently we have scarce resources, not only monetary, even human resources. We don't have many computational linguists that are from African descent, for example. We
Mm-hmm.
lack data set, for example. We don't, because we don't have much more aware. We are not much. We are not aware of the development that is going on, or should I say, we don't have the manpower that will propel it. At the moment, I think that we are lagging behind. But in the future, if we keep at what we are doing, I know many NLP uh, group like Masakani. I'm part of Masakani,
Oh, wow.
like Mbaza NLP, which is in East Africa. I know there is Ghana NLP too. So
Yes.
most of these programs would, in the long run, affect the people, and the more people they can influence, the more the continent is growing. So I think that in the future, what we're gonna have is we're gonna have an African system, an African ASL system, an African Siri system that represents our voice, that doesn't talk like a computer, but talk like a
Mm-hmm.
person of Africa descent, right?
That would be
And then
so
you have
nice.
the yeah, so I strongly believe that. Then we have chatbots. Like I know Mbaza NLP is very, very strong in building chatbots. I know Digital Umuganda, who their CTO is Samuel Rutunda. They are working tirelessly on such projects, chatbots. And yeah, I believe that with such development with such development we could have the future before us. So I believe in the future we have more data sets on African languages. We have more products that of African descent. We have African in the loop project. So they are not just creating products and telling us to adapt to our language, but that we are in the process of building the product and not in the process of adaptation to our languages. I I,
Wow.
I I believe these are what I believe about the future.
I also believe in this dream. I mean, I know it will definitely come to pass. I can't wait to see Africa. I mean, going far when it comes to AI chatbots and computational linguistics. So now coming to your achievement, Samuel, I know that winning awards such as the Recognition of Excellence Award and the Department of Linguistics Award at the University of Toronto is quite an achievement. So how do these accolades inspire you and motivate you in your career?
Well, yeah, they are good things for the belly to dance on at the moment, but there are not so much things to dwell on for most times. So
Mm-hmm.
my view about awards generally could, I'm not sure, maybe it's not general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I, on one side, I love celebration. On the other side, I believe that celebration could actually be a signal for incompetence, and this is what I mean. Nobody would celebrate you, for example, for having two hands or for having one head, right? You don't make a news because so it will be abnormal for people to have two heads, right? You're gonna make a news if you have two heads. You're gonna
Yes,
make a news if you have four hands. So if you
exactly.
celebrate somebody that has one head for having one head, it's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
So to
Yes.
celebrate somebody for excellence, it's not a bad idea, but we should understand the motive behind it. Is it that, okay, there are a lot of crazy people in this world, but it seems that your head is not so crazy. You are making the news. Or is it that you are just trying to just motivate someone? So these are my views about awards generally. So coming down to how this has propelled me, yeah, of course, it propelled me to do more work. It tells me that I am not that crazy after all. I think I'm doing something that makes sense. So yeah, such awards had been that I am doing something that's worth listening to or worth having. Like when I was funded to go to Rwanda, for example, the project I did in Rwanda, it was a propeller to me that okay, you are doing something that a bit maybe considered good, right? Since humans will be your testimonials. If they could give a testimony about what you are doing, then after all, maybe it's not so bad. So yeah, such thing propel me to say, okay, you can do much more.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting point of view.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
what does that look like for you, especially in computational linguistics? What should we
What
expect for
what does what?
the future looks like for you?
Oh, oh la la, I'm so excited. Yeah, so
Mhm.
for me, I would say expect something crazy, and I will explain what I mean by crazy.
Uh-huh.
Expect a fusion of ideas. So I want to fuse, for example, I want to fuse protein analysis together with speech sounds, together with robotics. So for the future, I want to keep at building more African data sets. For the future, I want to fuse different ideas like analyzing protein and understanding how the sequences and the change in protein could inform us about speech and how speech analysis could inform us about protein. I know that there's actually a research on this already by Institute of Advanced Computation at University of Stony Brook.
Okay.
And then how I could apply such into robotics by making robotics more socially intelligent. I'm interested in social science computation where we build products which are society driven and not tech or company driven. If
Okay.
human communication, if human computer communication aimed at um, is aimed at accelerating, no, not accelerating, is aimed at improving the contribution of human activities, then human computer interaction should be more centered on human than it is more on machine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I can't wait to see the future for you. I mean, interesting projects on there.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Samuel, it's been a pleasure having you on the show and learning about your remarkable journey in computational linguistics and linguistics. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or messages you would like to share with our listeners?
Okay. Yes. Let our listeners. I don't know where they will be listening from, but anybody that is working on African languages should incorporate Africans into their loop and not, for example, take data sets from online and assume they represent the native speakers. Africa will be great.
Africa will indeed be great. Thank you once again, Samuel, for joining us today and sharing your insights. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for more captivating conversations on the Alert podcast. Thank you very much.